Margaret Chun walked through the tall wooden doors of the university library every morning at exactly 7:30. She carried a small brown bag with her lunch and a cup of coffee that was always too hot to drink right away. Her shoes made soft sounds on the old floors as she made her way to the front desk, where she would spend the next 9 hours, helping students and teachers find the books they needed. At 45 years old, Margaret had worked at the library for 20 years. She knew where every book belonged and could find any piece of information faster than the computer system. Students often came to her when they were lost or confused about their research. She would listen carefully to what they needed and then walk them through the tall shelves to find exactly the right books. Her voice was always gentle and patient. Even when students asked the same questions over and over again, Margaret wore simple clothes to work, usually a plain sweater or cardigan with dark pants and comfortable shoes. Her black hair was always pulled back in a neat bun, and she wore small glasses that she had to push up her nose when she was reading. She never wore makeup or jewelry, except for a simple watch that had belonged to her mother. Some people might have thought she looked boring, but Margaret liked being comfortable and practical. The library was a busy place during the day. Students rushed in and out, carrying heavy bags and looking worried about their assignments. Teachers came to do research for their classes or to find quiet places to work. Margaret helped them all with the same calm smile and helpful attitude. She never raised her voice or seemed annoyed, even when people were rude or impatient. But Margaret had a secret that nobody at the university knew about. When she was young, she had been very good at chess. Her grandfather had taught her to play. When she was just 6 years old, he had been a famous chess player in Taiwan before he moved to America. Every day after school, Margaret would sit with her grandfather at his small kitchen table and play chess for hours. He taught her all the rules and showed her how to think about the game in special ways. Her grandfather told her that chess was like life. You had to think before you moved. You had to plan ahead and try to guess what other people would do. Most importantly, you had to be patient and never give up, even when things looked bad. Margaret learned these lessons well. By the time she was 12, she could beat most adults who played chess for fun. By the time she was 16, she was winning competitions against other young players from all over the state. Margaret loved chess because it made her feel smart and strong. When she sat at a chessboard, she was not just a quiet girl who nobody noticed. She was a powerful player who could see patterns and possibilities that other people missed. Her mind would work like a computer, thinking through many different moves and outcomes all at once. She felt alive and excited when she played, like she was using a special part of her brain that stayed sleeping most of the time. But when Margaret went to college, everything changed. She studied library science because she loved books and wanted to help people learn. The college she went to did not have a chess club, and she was too busy with her studies to look for other places to play. Slowly, chess became something from her past. She still remembered how to play, but she never talked about it with anyone. It felt like a secret part of herself that did not fit with her new life as a student and then as a librarian. Years went by, and Margaret settled into her quiet life at the university library. She was happy helping people and taking care of books. She lived alone in a small apartment near the campus and spent her free time reading, gardening, and taking long walks. Sometimes she would see chess games being played in the park or on television, and she would feel a little spark of interest, but she never thought about playing again. That part of her life seemed finished and far away. Every Tuesday evening, something interesting happened at the library. A group of men would come in after closing time to play chess. They called themselves the University Chess Club, and they met in the back room near the old reference books. Margaret had to stay late on Tuesdays to clean the library, so she often heard them talking and laughing while she worked. The chess club members were mostly teachers and graduate students. They were smart men who loved to talk about chess games and famous players. Margaret would listen to their conversations while she dusted shelves and emptied trash cans. They talked about chess like it was the most important thing in the world. They used big words and acted like they knew secret information that regular people could not understand. Margaret found their conversations interesting, but also a little silly. They spent so much time talking about chess that they did not seem to spend much time actually playing. When they did play games, they would argue about rules and complain when they lost. Margaret remembered that her grandfather had taught her to respect the game and her opponents. He said that chess was about learning, not about showing off or making other people feel bad. The men in the chess club barely noticed Margaret while she cleaned around them. If they saw her at all, they would nod politely and then go back to their discussions. To them, she was just the library lady who emptied their trash and made sure the room was clean for their meetings. They never thought that she might know anything about chess or that she might be interested in their conversations. Margaret did not mind being invisible to them. She had learned long ago that being quiet and unnoticed could be a good thing. People said things around her that they might not say if they thought she was really listening. She learned a lot about the university and the people who worked there just by paying attention while she did her job, but sometimes, when she heard the chess club members talking about women in chess, Margaret felt a little angry. They often said that women were not good at chess because they could not think in the right way. They said that chess required a special kind of brain that women did not have. They laughed about female chess players and made jokes about women who tried to play seriously. Margaret knew these things were not true. She remembered all the strong female players she had met in competitions when she was young. She remembered how her grandfather had told her that the best chess players were the ones who could be patient and think carefully, and that these qualities had nothing to do with being male or female. But she never said anything to correct the men in the chess club. She just listened and continued with her work, keeping her thoughts to herself. As the months went by, Margaret began to feel like she was living two different lives. During the day, she was the helpful librarian who everyone could count on for assistance and kindness. In the evenings, while she cleaned around the chess club, she was like a ghost who heard everything but was never really seen. She started to wonder what would happen if these two parts of her life ever came together. What would the chess club members think if they knew about her past? What would happen if the quiet librarian suddenly was not so quiet anymore? Dr. Harrison Webb arrived at the university in September with a big ego and an even bigger opinion of himself. He was 38 years old and had just gotten a job teaching philosophy. He drove an expensive car and wore suits that cost more than Margaret made in a month. From his first day, he made sure everyone knew how smart he thought he was. Dr. Webb had played chess since he was a child, and he was quite good at it. He had won several local tournaments and even placed second in a state championship once. Chess was very important to him because it made him feel superior to other people. He loved to tell stories about games he had won and players he had defeated. When he found out about the University Chess Club, he was very excited to join. The first time Dr. Webb came to the Tuesday night chess club meeting, he made a big impression. He walked into the back room of the library wearing an expensive jacket and carrying a leather chess set that looked like it belonged in a museum. The other club members were impressed by his confidence and his stories about important games he had played. Dr. Webb quickly became the strongest player in the club. He won game after game against the other members, and each victory made him more arrogant. He would explain his moves in a loud voice, making sure everyone could hear how clever he was. When other players made mistakes, he would shake his head and give long lectures about what they should have done instead. Margaret continued to clean around the chess club while Dr. Webb dominated the meetings. She noticed that the other members seemed less happy than before. Dr. Webb made them feel stupid and embarrassed when they lost to him. The friendly atmosphere of the club changed into something more tense and competitive. Dr. Webb also brought new topics of conversation to the chess club. He loved to talk about intelligence and who had it and who did not. He often said that chess was the best way to measure how smart someone really was. According to Dr. Webb, people who were good at chess were naturally superior to people who were not good at it. But Dr. Webb's favorite topic was talking about women in chess. He had very strong opinions about this subject, and he shared them loudly and often. He said that women's brains were not built for chess because they could not think logically like men could. He claimed that women were too emotional and could not handle the pressure of serious Competition. Margaret listened to these conversations while she wiped down tables and organized chairs. Every Tuesday, Dr. Webb would say something that made her angry. He would talk about famous female chess players and explain why they were not really as good as people thought. He said that women only won games against other women and that they could never compete seriously against men. The other chess club members sometimes looked uncomfortable when Dr. Webb talked this way, but nobody ever argued with him. He was the strongest player in the club, and he had a way of making people feel foolish if they disagreed with him. So they would nod and laugh at his jokes, even when they were not really funny. One Tuesday evening in November, Dr. Webb was feeling especially pleased with himself. He had just won 3 games in a row, and the other club members were packing up their chess sets with disappointed looks on their faces. Dr. Webb was explaining to everyone why his victories were examples of superior strategic thinking when he noticed Margaret cleaning the bookshelf near their table. Margaret was dusting the old chess books that the library kept in the reference section. She was working quietly, trying not to disturb the club members, but Dr. Webb suddenly had an idea that amused him greatly. He had been talking about women and chess for weeks, and here was a perfect example of what he meant. Margaret looked like exactly the kind of person who would never understand a complex game like chess. Dr. Webb stood up and walked over to where Margaret was working. He smiled in a way that was supposed to look friendly but actually looked mean. The other club members watched to see what he was going to do. They could tell that Dr. Webb was planning something, and they were not sure they wanted to see it. Margaret looked up when Dr. Webb approached her. She had been listening to his conversation about chess strategy, and she was actually impressed by some of his knowledge. But she could also tell from his expression that he was not coming over to be nice to her. Dr. Webb spoke in a loud voice so that everyone in the room could hear him. He asked Margaret if she had ever played chess. His tone was the kind that adults use when they talk to small children about things they think the children cannot understand. Margaret said quietly that she had played a little bit when she was younger. This answer made Dr. Webb even more excited. He turned to the other club members and announced that here was a perfect opportunity for an educational demonstration. He said that he could show everyone the difference between someone who really understood chess and someone who just knew how the pieces moved. Dr. Webb offered to teach Margaret the basics of chess strategy. He said it would be fun and educational for everyone. He promised to be patient and gentle, like a teacher helping a slow student. The other club members shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. They could see that Dr. Webb was making fun of Margaret, but they did not know how to stop him without making him angry. Margaret listened to Dr. Webb's offer with a calm expression on her face. Inside, she was feeling several different emotions at the same time. Part of her was angry at his condescending attitude. Part of her was sad that he thought so little of her abilities. But another part of her was starting to feel excited. It had been many years since she had played chess, and she missed it more than she usually admitted to herself. Dr. Webb continued talking, explaining how chess required special kinds of thinking that took years to develop. He said that most people, especially women, never really learned to play well because they did not have the right kind of mind for it. He offered to go easy on Margaret and help her understand the basic ideas of the game. The other chess club members looked embarrassed. They knew that Dr. Webb was being rude, but they also knew that Margaret was just the library cleaning lady. They assumed that she probably did not know much about chess and that Dr. Webb would easily beat her. They thought it would be over quickly, and then they could all go home and try to forget about the whole uncomfortable situation. Margaret thought about Dr. Webb's offer for a long moment. She could simply say no and continue with her cleaning. That would be the safe choice, and it would avoid any drama or attention. But she looked at Dr. Webb's smug face and listened to his arrogant assumptions about women and chess, and she made a different decision. Margaret set down her cleaning supplies and told Dr. Webb that she would be happy to play a game with him. She said it very quietly and politely, the same way she said everything else. But there was something different in her voice, something that made the other club members pay Closer attention. Dr. Webb clapped his hands together and announced to the room that they were about to witness a teaching moment. He said that everyone could learn something by watching him play against someone who was completely new to serious chess. He promised to explain his moves so that Margaret could understand what was happening and maybe learn something useful. Margaret asked if they could play the following Tuesday, since it was getting late and she still had work to finish. Dr. Webb agreed enthusiastically. He said that would give him time to think about the best way to make the game educational for her. He offered to bring some beginner chess books that she could read to prepare for their game. As the chess club members gathered their things and prepared to leave, they talked quietly among themselves about what would happen next Tuesday. Most of them felt sorry for Margaret and wished that Dr. Webb would leave her alone. They thought the game would be embarrassing for her and uncomfortable for everyone to watch. Dr. Webb spent the rest of the week telling everyone about his plan to give the library lady a chess lesson. He talked about it in the faculty lounge and mentioned it to his students. He was looking forward to having an audience while he demonstrated his superior chess skills against someone who obviously knew nothing about the game. Margaret spent the week thinking about chess for the first time in many years. While she went about her regular work at the library, her mind was remembering games she had played long ago. She thought about her grandfather and all the lessons he had taught her. She remembered the feeling of sitting at a chessboard and seeing all the possibilities spread out before her like a map of the future. On Sunday, Margaret did something she had not done in over 20 years. She went to a store that sold games and bought a small chess set. That evening, she set it up on her kitchen table and played through some of the classic games her grandfather had shown her when she was young. Her hands remembered how to move the pieces, and her mind remembered how to think about the relationships between them. As Tuesday approached, Margaret felt nervous but also excited. She knew that Dr. Webb expected to beat her easily and make her look foolish in front of the other club members. He had no idea what was really going to happen when she made her first move. Tuesday evening came faster than Margaret expected. She finished her regular library work and began cleaning the back room where the chess club would meet. Her hands were shaking slightly as she wiped down the tables and arranged the chairs. She had spent the whole week thinking about this moment, and now it was finally here. The chess club members arrived one by one, looking more curious than usual. Word had spread around the university about Dr. Webb's plan to give the library lady a chess lesson. Some faculty members who did not usually come to chess club showed up just to watch. By 7 o'clock, there were almost 15 people crowded into the small back room. Dr. Webb arrived last, carrying his expensive leather chess set and wearing his most confident smile. He had spent the week telling everyone who would listen about his plan to demonstrate proper chess technique. He brought along some basic chess books that he planned to give to Margaret after the game, assuming she would want to learn more after seeing a real master play. Margaret was arranging the last few chairs when Dr. Webb walked over to her. He spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear, asking if she was ready for her first real chess lesson. He said he had been looking forward to this all week and that he hoped she would not be too nervous about playing in front of so many people. The other people in the room watched this interaction with mixed feelings. Some felt sorry for Margaret and wished Dr. Webb would be nicer to her. Others were curious to see what would happen when someone who knew nothing about chess tried to play against the club's strongest member. A few people looked uncomfortable, as if they knew they were about to watch something that was not quite right. Dr. Webb set up his beautiful chessboard on the main table in the center of the room. The pieces were made of heavy wood and felt smooth and expensive when he touched them. He arranged them carefully, making sure each piece was exactly in the center of its square. Then he stepped back and admired his setup like an artist looking at a painting. Margaret approached the table quietly. She was wearing her usual simple sweater and dark pants, and her hair was pulled back in its normal neat bun. Compared to Dr. Webb in his expensive jacket, she looked very plain and ordinary. But when she looked at the chessboard, something in her expression changed. Her eyes became more focused, and she seemed to be paying attention in a different way. Dr. Webb offered to let Margaret play with the white pieces, which meant she would move first. He explained that this was an advantage he was giving her to make the game more fair. He said that experienced players usually preferred to play black because it was more challenging, but that beginners should start with white to make things easier. Margaret thanked him politely and sat down in the chair facing the white pieces. Dr. Webb sat across from her and began explaining the basic rules of chess. He talked about how each piece moved and what the goal of the game was. He spoke slowly and used simple words as if he was talking to a child who had never seen a chessboard before. The people watching began to feel more and more uncomfortable as Dr. Webb continued his explanation. Margaret listened patiently and nodded at appropriate times, but some of the observers thought they saw a small smile at the corners of her mouth. They were not sure if she was smiling because she was nervous or because she found something amusing about the situation. Finally, Dr. Webb finished his lecture and announced that they could begin the game. He reminded Margaret that she should think carefully before making each move and that she should not be afraid to ask questions if she did not understand something. He said that making mistakes was part of learning and that he would help her see better moves after the game was over. Margaret looked at the chessboard for a long moment. The room was very quiet as everyone waited to see what she would do. Dr. Webb leaned back in his chair with a relaxed expression, confident that the game would be over quickly. He had already decided which opening moves he would use to teach Margaret about proper chess development. Then Margaret reached out and moved her king's pawn 2 squares forward. It was a simple, basic opening move that almost every chess player learns first. But something about the way Margaret made the move caught Dr. Webb's attention. She picked up the pawn with confidence, placed it exactly in the center of the destination square, and let go of it cleanly. Her movement was precise and purposeful, like someone who had made that same move hundreds of times before. Dr. Webb paused for just a moment, but then made his own opening move. He pushed his king's pawn forward 2 squares, mirroring Margaret's move. This created a symmetrical position in the center of the board. He began to explain why this was a good opening setup and how it helped control the important central squares. Margaret made her second move without hesitation. She brought her king's knight out to a square where it could control the center and support her pawn. Again, her movement was quick and confident. She placed the knight down and immediately folded her hands in her lap, waiting for Dr. Webb's response. This time, Dr. Webb hesitated longer before making his move. Margaret's knight development was not just correct, it was the exact move that strong players chose in this position. It was part of a classical opening system that required knowledge of chess theory. Dr. Webb began to wonder if Margaret might know a little more about chess than he had assumed, but Dr. Webb pushed these thoughts away and made his own knight move. He continued explaining his strategy to the watching audience, but his voice sounded slightly less confident than before. He talked about the importance of developing pieces quickly and controlling the center of the board, concepts that Margaret seemed to already understand. Margaret's third move made Dr. Webb stop talking entirely. She developed her king's bishop to a square where it pointed directly at Dr. Webb's king. It was a move that was both aggressive and perfectly sound according to chess theory. The position she was creating was from an opening system called the Italian game, one of the oldest and most respected ways to begin a chess game. The people watching the game began to notice that something unusual was happening. Margaret was not playing like someone who was learning chess for the first time. Her moves were coming quickly and confidently, and they all seemed to fit together as part of a larger plan. Dr. Webb, on the other hand, was starting to look less sure of himself. Dr. Webb made his next move more slowly than usual. He was beginning to realize that Margaret knew much more about chess than she had let on. But he was still confident that his superior experience and skill would win the game. He had been playing competitive chess for many years, and he had beaten much stronger opponents than a library worker could possibly be. Margaret continued to develop her pieces with the same quiet confidence. Each move she made was theoretically sound and practically strong. She was building a position that was both solid and full of potential for attack. Dr. Webb recognized the opening system she was using. and he knew that it could lead to very dangerous tactical combinations if Black was not careful. As the game progressed, the watching audience became more and more interested. They had expected to see Dr. Webb give a quick lesson to a beginner, but instead they were watching what looked like a serious game between two experienced players. Margaret's moves showed knowledge of chess principles that took years to learn, and her calm demeanor suggested that she was completely comfortable in this situation. Dr. Webb began to sweat slightly as he realized that he was going to have to work much harder than he had expected. Margaret was not making the kind of obvious mistakes that beginners usually made. Instead, she was creating threats and problems that required careful thought to solve. For the first time since the game began, Dr. Webb felt like he might actually be in a real contest. The room had become completely quiet except for the soft sound of chess pieces being moved on the board. Margaret and Dr. Webb were both concentrating deeply on the position, and the spectators were watching with fascination as the game developed. Nobody was talking or laughing anymore. Everyone could sense that something important was happening. Even if they did not fully understand what it was, Margaret made another move that caused Dr. Webb to stare at the board for a long time before responding. She was starting to coordinate her pieces in a way that suggested she might be planning a powerful attack. Dr. Webb could see several possible threats developing, and he was having trouble deciding how to defend against all of them at once. For the first time since he had joined the chess club, Dr. Webb was not the one in control of the game. He was not the teacher explaining moves to a weaker player. Instead, he was struggling to keep up with an opponent who seemed to understand chess just as well as he did, and maybe even better. The confident smile had disappeared from his face, and he was beginning to look worried about what might happen next. The chess game had been going on for 30 minutes, and Dr. Webb was no longer doing any teaching. He was fighting for his life on the chessboard. Margaret had built a powerful position with her pieces working together like parts of a well-designed machine. Every move she made created new problems for Dr. Webb to solve, and he was running out of good answers. The people watching the game could hardly believe what they were seeing. Margaret, the quiet library worker who cleaned around them every week, was playing chess at a level that none of them had imagined possible. Her moves showed deep understanding of chess strategy and tactics. She was not just moving pieces randomly, or hoping for luck. She had a clear plan, and she was executing it with the skill of a master. Dr. Webb wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied the board. He was used to being the strongest player in the room, the one who explained moves to weaker opponents. Now he found himself on the receiving end of a chess lesson, and it was not a pleasant experience. Margaret's position was getting stronger with each move. While his own pieces seemed tangled and confused, Margaret continued to play with the same calm demeanor she had shown all evening. She would look at the board, think for a moment, and then make her move with quiet confidence. She never showed any sign of excitement or nervousness, even though she was clearly winning the game. Her face remained peaceful and focused, as if she was simply doing a job that she knew how to do well. The other chess club members began whispering to each other about what they were witnessing. They recognized that Margaret was using advanced chess techniques that took years to master. Her piece coordination was textbook perfect, and her tactical vision was sharp and accurate. Some of them started to wonder if Margaret had been a serious chess player at some point in her life. Dr. Webb made a move that he hoped would simplify the position and reduce Margaret's attacking chances. But Margaret responded immediately with a brilliant tactical sequence that won material and improved her position even further. She sacrificed a minor piece to expose Dr. Webb's king and create a devastating attack that he could not defend against. The sacrifice was so unexpected and beautiful that several people in the audience gasped out loud. They could see that Margaret had calculated the entire sequence several moves ahead, and that Dr. Webb had no way to avoid losing significant material or falling into checkmate. It was the kind of move that chess players dream about making, executed with perfect timing and technique. Dr. Webb stared at the board in shock. He had not seen the sacrifice coming, and now he was faced with a position that was hopeless. All of his pieces were tied up defending against Margaret's threats, and he had no way to create counterplay. For a man who prided himself on his chess ability, it was a humbling and embarrassing experience. Margaret waited patiently for Dr. Webb to make his next move. She could see that he was struggling with the position, and she gave him all the time he needed to find the best defense. Even though she was winning convincingly, she showed no signs of gloating or satisfaction. She treated Dr. Webb with the same quiet respect she showed to everyone. The audience was completely silent now, watching the final phase of the game with fascination. They could see that Dr. Webb was in serious trouble, but they wanted to see how Margaret would finish the game. Would she be able to convert her advantage into a victory, or would Dr. Webb find some way to escape from the difficult position? Dr. Webb tried a desperate defensive move, hoping to trade pieces and reach an endgame where he might have drawing chances. But Margaret had anticipated this plan, and she responded with a move that maintained all of her advantages while improving her position even further. Her technique was flawless, showing the kind of endgame knowledge that comes only from years of serious study and practice. As the game continued, it became clear that Margaret was not just a strong chess player, but a truly exceptional one. Her move showed deep understanding of chess principles at the highest level. She was managing multiple threats simultaneously while maintaining perfect coordination between her pieces. Dr. Webb, despite his considerable skill, was completely outclassed. The other people in the room began to realize that they had seriously underestimated Margaret. This quiet woman who had been cleaning around them for years was playing chess at a level that few of them could even understand, let alone achieve. They started to feel embarrassed about all the times they had ignored her or treated her as if she was invisible. Margaret made another strong move that tightened the noose around Dr. Webb's position. She was methodically improving her pieces and creating new threats, while Dr. Webb was reduced to making desperate attempts to avoid immediate defeat. The game was approaching its conclusion, and everyone could see that Margaret would win decisively. Dr. Webb looked up from the board and caught Margaret's eye for the first time since the game had begun. He could see something in her expression that he had not noticed before. There was knowledge there and experience and a deep understanding of the game they were playing. He realized that he had made a terrible mistake in assuming that Margaret was just a beginner who needed his instruction. Margaret made her final combination with the same quiet precision she had shown throughout the game. She moved her queen to a square where it created multiple threats that Dr. Webb could not defend against simultaneously. The position was so overwhelming that Dr. Webb would be checkmated in just a few more moves. No matter what he did, Dr. Webb studied the board for several minutes, looking for any possible way to continue the game. But Margaret's attack was too strong and too well coordinated. Every defensive move he considered led to an even worse position. Finally, he did something that he had rarely done in his chess career. He reached across the board and tipped over his king, the universal signal of resignation in chess. The room erupted in surprised murmurs and quiet applause. Margaret had not just beaten Dr. Webb, she had dominated him completely. The game had been a masterpiece of strategic planning and tactical execution. Dr. Webb, the arrogant professor who had expected to give a chess lesson to a beginner, had instead received a lesson himself. Margaret stood up from the table and extended her hand to Dr. Webb in the traditional post-game handshake. Her expression was gracious and humble, showing no signs of triumph or satisfaction at her victory. She thanked Dr. Webb for the game and complimented him on several moves he had made during the difficult middle portion of the contest. Dr. Webb shook Margaret's hand with a mixture of respect and embarrassment. He was struggling to understand how he had so completely misjudged his opponent. The quiet librarian had just played chess at a level that was far superior to his own, and she had done it with grace and dignity that made his own behavior look petty and foolish. The other people in the room gathered around Margaret, asking her questions about where she had learned to play chess so well. They wanted to know if she had been hiding her chess skills all along and why she had never mentioned that she was such a strong player. Margaret answered their questions politely but did not volunteer much information about her chess background. Dr. Webb sat alone at the chessboard, replaying the game in his mind and trying to understand where he had gone wrong. He was beginning to realize that his assumptions about Margaret and about women chess players in general had been completely incorrect. The quiet woman who cleaned the library had just taught him a lesson about both chess and humility that he would never forget. After the game ended, Margaret quietly began putting the chess pieces back in their starting positions. Her movements were careful and precise, just like her chess moves had been. The room was still buzzing with excitement and surprise, but Margaret seemed unaffected by all the attention. She was simply tidying up, the same way she always did after the chess club meetings. Dr. Webb watched. Margaret organized the pieces and finally found his voice. He asked her where she had learned to play chess so well. His tone was completely different from the condescending way he had spoken to her before the game. Now he sounded genuinely curious and respectful, like a student asking a teacher for information. Margaret looked up from the chessboard and smiled softly. She told the group that her grandfather had taught her to play when she was very young. She explained that he had been a strong chess player in Taiwan before immigrating to America. For many years, chess had been an important part of her life, but she had stopped playing competitively. When she went to college and started her career, the other chess club members gathered closer to hear Margaret's story. They were fascinated to learn about this hidden part of her life. Margaret told them about growing up playing chess every day after school, about local tournaments she had won as a teenager, and about the state championship where she had placed second when she was only 16 years old. Margaret explained that her grandfather had taught her that chess was about much more than just winning games. He had shown her that chess could teach patience, planning, and respect for opponents. He had told her that the best chess players were those who could stay calm under pressure and think clearly even in difficult situations. These lessons had helped her not just in chess, but in all areas of her life. Dr. Webb listened to Margaret's story with growing amazement and shame. He realized that while he had been showing off and making speeches about chess theory, Margaret had been quietly absorbing everything with the knowledge of someone who truly understood the game at a deep level. His assumptions about her abilities had been not just wrong, but embarrassingly wrong. The other club members began asking Margaret technical questions about the game they had just witnessed. They wanted to understand the strategic ideas behind her moves and learn from her superior technique. Margaret answered their questions thoughtfully, explaining her thinking in simple terms that everyone could understand. She was a natural teacher, patient and clear in her explanations. Margaret told them about the opening system she had used, called the Italian game. She explained how it was one of the oldest chess openings, dating back hundreds of years, but still effective when played correctly. She showed them how each of her moves had been part of a larger plan to control the center of the board and create attacking chances against Dr. Webb's king. Dr. Webb asked Margaret about the sacrifice she had made in the middle of the game. He admitted that he had not seen it coming and wanted to understand how she had calculated such a complex sequence. Margaret set up the position on the board and walked through her analysis, showing how the sacrifice had led to a winning attack. Her explanation was clear and instructive, helping everyone understand the beauty of the combination. As Margaret explained her moves, the chess club members realized they were receiving a lesson from someone whose understanding of chess was far superior to their own. Her knowledge was not just theoretical but practical, gained through years of serious play and study. They began to understand that they had been in the presence of a master all along. Without ever knowing it, Margaret told them that she had missed playing chess more than she usually admitted to herself. Working at the library was satisfying, but it did not challenge her mind in the same way that chess did. Listening to the chess club meetings every Tuesday had reminded her of how much she loved the game and how good it felt to think deeply about complex positions. The club members immediately invited Margaret to join their group as an official member. They said they would be honored to have someone of her skill and knowledge as part of their organization. They asked if she would be willing to teach them and help them improve their own games. Margaret accepted their invitation graciously, saying she would enjoy the opportunity to play chess regularly again. Dr. Webb stood up and formally apologized to Margaret for his behavior before the game. He admitted that his assumptions about women and chess had been wrong and offensive. He said that Margaret had taught him important lessons about both chess and humility. He asked if she would be willing to help him improve his own game. Acknowledging that she was clearly the stronger player, Margaret accepted Dr. Webb's apology with the same grace she had shown throughout the evening. She told him that everyone made mistakes in judgment sometimes, and that the important thing was to learn from them. She said she would be happy to help him with his chess, just as she would help any member of the club who wanted to improve. Over the following weeks, the chess club meetings took on a completely different character. Margaret became not just a member but the unofficial teacher and strongest player in the group. Her presence transformed the competitive atmosphere that Dr. Webb had created into something more collaborative and educational. Members focused on learning and improving rather than just trying to win. Margaret brought chess books from her personal collection and shared them with other club members. She organized training sessions where she would analyze famous games and explain important chess concepts. Her teaching style was patient and encouraging, helping weaker players gain confidence, while challenging stronger players to think more deeply about the game. Dr. Webb became one of Margaret's most dedicated students. His defeat had been a humbling experience, but it had also motivated him to approach chess with a new attitude. He stopped making arrogant speeches about chess theory and started listening more carefully to Margaret's instruction. His game improved significantly under her guidance. The story of Margaret's victory over Dr. Webb spread throughout the university. People who had never paid attention to the quiet librarian began to see her differently. Students and faculty members who had previously ignored her started greeting her with respect and curiosity. Some even asked her about chess and expressed interest in learning the game. Margaret enjoyed her new role in the chess club, but she remained the same humble and hardworking person she had always been. She continued to do her library job with the same dedication and care. The only difference was that now she had an outlet for the competitive spirit and intellectual passion that she had kept hidden for so many years. The chess club grew larger as word spread about Margaret's teaching abilities. New members joined who wanted to learn from someone who clearly understood the game at a master level. Margaret welcomed them all, remembering her grandfather's teaching that chess was meant to be shared, and that everyone could benefit from studying the game. Seriously, Dr. Webb often reflected on the evening when he had challenged Margaret to what he thought would be an easy victory. He realized that his arrogance and prejudice had blinded him to the truth about Margaret's abilities. The experience had taught him to be more careful about making assumptions about people based on their appearance or job title. Margaret never spoke about her victory over Dr. Webb in a boastful way. When people asked her about the game, she would simply say that it had been an interesting contest and that she had enjoyed the opportunity to play serious chess again. Her humility and grace made her even more respected and admired by those who knew the full story. The University Chess Club became known as one of the strongest and most welcoming chess groups in the region. Under Margaret's guidance, several members improved dramatically and began competing in local tournaments. The club's reputation attracted strong players from other universities, who came to test themselves against Margaret and learn from her expertise. Years later, people still talked about the evening when the quiet librarian had shocked everyone by revealing herself to be a chess master. It became a legendary story at the university, told to new students and faculty as an example of how assumptions about people can be completely wrong. Margaret had taught everyone an important lesson about looking beneath the surface and treating all people with respect and consideration. Margaret continued working at the library and leading the chess club for many more years. She never sought fame or recognition for her chess abilities, but she found deep satisfaction in sharing her love of the game with others. Her grandfather would have been proud to see how she used chess not just to compete but to teach, inspire, and bring people together in the pursuit of knowledge and improvement.